half Japanese, and every summer I would go to Japan to visit my relatives. There are some occurrences which haven't left my mind today, so I wanted to write them down a little bit. Excuse my writing skills. I don't have any experience in this, and mostly the reason why I write this is for myself. As probably most Japanese people I know, my family believes in spirits, ghosts, and superstitions. My great-grandfather died when I was about 2 years old or so, and my grandparents, they had a shrine called Butsudan in honor of him in their house. It was set up in the old room of one of my uncles at the second floor. There was this ritual I had to do ever since I was 8 or 9 years old while I stayed there. In the morning, fill up a little bowl of rice, bring it up to the shrine, hit the sound bowl that was always set up there 2 times. At 6 p.m., I had to take the bowl of rice back to the kitchen on the first floor. This sounds simple and kind of boring, but I hated it, and I was somehow scared to go upstairs alone. One reason was my memories from when I was younger. I didn't know why, but my grandparents let me and my older sister play in this room often. The room was tiny, just the shrine and an old desk. There was also 2 built-in storages, which are common in Japan. However, as I didn't like being in that room, I often just slept in one of those storages where the blankets were stored. It was always kind of cold in that room, even though there was no air conditioner, and summers in Japan can get unbearably hot. One day, as I was napping in the storage, I heard someone talking to me. I thought it was my sister, but she seemed to have left the room, so maybe someone outside. I didn't care much and ignored it. Then another time, I felt breath on my neck, and I woke up. Again, no one to see. I was pretty fearless and carefree as a child. I never thought much about it for too long. I don't know why, but pretty suddenly, I began to fear this room. I realized that things happened that I couldn't explain. I kept going with it, not knowing that things would get worse. The curtains sometimes moved without reason, or I'd hear footsteps coming from inside the room while I was in the hall. The second reason was the missing rice. Every evening when I went to get the bowl, there was some rice missing. First, I thought my sister or another family member was pranking me, but that wasn't the case. Even when we went on a family trip all day and I made sure that no one went up there before me, there was some rice missing. A rat or something, that wasn't possible. Why would such an animal just take a bite and leave it every day? My mother told me that the spirit of my great-grandfather was eating it. This didn't make anything better for me. There were these little things that made me more and more uncomfortable in this house. Every summer, I had a fear of going to my grandparents. One event made me almost faint on the toilet. I never have to wake up to pee in the night, but maybe because of jet lag or the climate, I always woke up at 3 or 4 a.m. when I went to Japan. There was just one toilet at the second floor, and since I slept with my mother and my sister upstairs, I had to go down these steep, narrow stairs. The toilet is one small room, just enough to stand or sit at the toilet. The door had a little peephole, like most front doors have. What I hated most was that the light switches were so badly placed. I didn't have any light until I got to the toilet. On that one night, I reached the toilet already feeling uncomfortable. I finished peeing. I stood up, flushed, and turned to the door. I was just the height of the peephole, so naturally, I looked at it. There was this eye staring right back at me. I couldn't scream or move in any way. Just staring back and hoping that it would move away. I stood there, frozen and trapped. I don't know how long this lasted, but suddenly I heard steps coming closer. A knock on the door. "Are you in there? Speed up. I need to pee." It was my sister. I opened the door, almost crying, and told her about the eye. She was scared by my experience, so I waited for her while she left the door open. Since then, we always woke each other up to go pee and left the door open. One day, I sat with my uncle in the living room, and I told him about my fears of this house. He wasn't surprised. He said that there was a little bit of supernatural or spiritual power in every room. For example, in the bedroom of my grandma, which was directly connected to the living room, the door was always open, and there was this mirror which could be seen at all times. At first, I didn't recognize this piece of furniture as a mirror, just because there was always this colorful cloth covering it. Not just like hanging over the mirror. It was tucked in carefully on every side. I just knew that there was a mirror because one time I tried to move the cloth, and I saw a little bit. And my grandma came running and shouting that I should never remove the cloth, as she told me she didn't want any dust on her beloved mirror. My uncle had another story to tell. The mirror was kind of cursed, a woman who was living inside of it. According to him, he's kind of like a medium, and he sees many spirits. When he was younger, he tried to communicate with every spirit he saw, and he tried to help. So one day, he saw her in the mirror, a normal-looking, middle-aged woman, not like someone everyone would imagine in a horror movie. As he sat in front of the mirror talking to her, she told him to come closer, and he did. And suddenly, her arms came out and tried to pull him into the mirror. My grandma, who was in the living room, noticed it and pulled him out of the woman's arms. Since then, the mirror is covered. Besides these little episodes, there were these Japanese dolls who would move around. The feeling of someone right behind me while I walked up and down the stairs, and some normal creeps like the jobless neighbor who would sometimes stare at the house all day. Now, I have a job and my own money, so I stay somewhere else. I visit my grandparents every time I go to Japan, but I don't stay overnight anymore. So at the time of this story, I still lived with my mom, but I was 21 and I had a job, so I was paying rent. My mom went to Europe on a trip, so I invited my best friend, who was also 21, to sleep over. Usually we drink and play video games, but we both had to wake up early for work. We also happened to work at the same place, so we went off to bed in the guest room. And yes, we both sleep in the same bed because we've both had too many ghost experiences to sleep alone. Hence why I invited him over to begin with. Anyway, we were laying down and trying to sleep with my dog sleeping next to us. It's around 3 o'clock in the morning when all of a sudden we both hear a weeping, crying sound coming from the door or the closet. We both sit up immediately and we look at each other. And then to my dog to see who it was, but it wasn't any of us. We just sit there, listening in, and finally my friend says, "What the fuck, bro?" And it stops. I then get up to turn on the lights, and we proceed to cautiously look throughout the entire house to see who or what it could have been, and no one. It was 3 a.m., and it was only us, so we got dressed in our work clothes and left the house to go to a 24/7 Walmart near the house. And we just hung out at Walmart until our shift started, which was around 7 a.m. To this day, We don't know what the fuck it was, and my mom didn't believe us when we told her what happened. It was crystal clear, a girl's voice, and she sounded like she was crying, mixed with laughing. Creepy as fuck. Also, another friend I have who doesn't believe in ghosts was over at my house one day, and at night, he was leaving to go home, and in our driveway, he heard a girl calling out to him, and he told me he looked around, and he saw no one. He ran to his car and sped off. It was around 1 a.m. when he left, so I doubt any of my neighbors would be out at that time. What if it was the same girl? Well, thank God I don't live there anymore.